Let's talk a little bit about our city. You know this, I don't have to tell you. Among cities with a population under 1 million, Honolulu is rated as the most unaffordable city in the nation. With the highest gas prices, our electricity rates are triple the national average, highest cost of living, and there's some huge problems facing the city and state government that we need to take into account. For example, the city and state employee retirement system has an $8 billion unfunded liability. Basically what that means is that the system takes in about it earns about 700 million, but it pays out over $1 billion. That means trouble for the city and the state. And to make matters worse, the city and state employee health fund has a $14 billion unfunded liability. And unlike the retirement system, it does not earn anything. It doesn't have a corpus. And so this is a very, very serious problem that we're going to have to deal with. And I think that, these are the kind of things that maybe come out of retirement. Now, what about the city? Well, the city's infrastructure is deteriorating. My truth squad here, help put together the estimate as to what it would take to upgrade the sewers and the water system. And for example, to upgrade the sewers, between 5 and 6 billion. To upgrade the water system, which experiences a water main break like almost every day of the year, 350 a year, 5 to 6 billion as well. Our roads rated third worst in the nation, filled with potholes, about 1.6 billion to repave the roads, and then we have 800 billion for storm drains. These are just some of the larger costs that the next year faces in dealing with. Well, now, you may have thought that this was a Loch Ness monster. That looks like it, look at that. Well, you remember in 2006 there was this tremendous sewer problem in Waikiki, and put Waikiki on the map in terms of news around the world. And it's fitting, I think, that this thing kind of rose up out of the water because it's basically saying, fix the sewers before you pay for the train. I don't mean to wax philosophical, but there's a saying, this was by the philosopher George Santayana: those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, and that's what's happened in the city. The city has 1,400 miles of sewer pipelines. The average lifespan of these pipes is about 60 years. So our guys, our truth squad, calculated that the city needs to do 23.3 miles a year just to keep up and to upgrade the system. Well, here's what they've done, and this is from the city's own budget documents. Fiscal 08, they did 10 miles. 09, 5.5 miles. Fiscal year 2010, 3.4 miles, 3.8 miles, 6.7 miles, and 6 miles, all well below the 23.3 miles that they should be doing. As a result, there's a tremendous backlog. And we calculated this only for the last 6 years because we couldn't get some information about the years before it. But the backlog is 104.4 miles, and if you use 10 million per mile, which is a standard unit that we use in the city, then the replacement cost of this 104 miles is 1.04 billion. That's the kind of cost that we face. Bad things can happen when you ignore your infrastructure. And it happened in Pearl City, and some of you may have read Star Advertiser a few days ago, or seen it over the news. In the Pearl City area, the sewer capacity there is at its maximum. And so the city had to declare a moratorium on building. This moratorium will be 6 years, cost about $60 million, they say. And what it means for the people out there is that no additions or new homes can be built during this time. For example, if you want to put an extra bath and toilet in your home because your children are going to live with you, you can't do it. This could happen in your neighborhood. Neighborhoods like Moilili, McCullough face the same problems. This chart shows how the sewer fees have increased. You can see here, in 2005, $34.32. By 2012, it experienced about a 175% increase, and from 2011 on to 2017, you will be facing another 36% increase. Here's the water rates. 2005, $23.24. By 2011, it's $42.11, and it will go up from then eventually to 2016 to $67.72. We got this information from the city documents. So let's talk about rail and how it affects other programs. Now here's the road resurfacing. I mentioned earlier that Honolulu is rated as the third worst in the nation when it comes to roads. So it really should be increasing the spending. But what's happening, and we think it's because the city is concerned about its bond rating, which is pretty good right now, falling, which would mean millions of dollars more in cost. You can see that in the out years, especially from fiscal 2014, it goes from 77 to 55, and eventually gets down to 45. 77 million was not enough, but they're decreasing spending for the out years. Doesn't make sense. Never be able to repave the roads. How does that affect public health and safety? Well, here's a chart showing police funding. The blue is past and current appropriation. The red shows a pattern like the other chart. It's a pattern going downwards. From a high of 17.3 this year, it goes down to 5.4 million in 2018. Same thing with fire CIP. It costs about $625,000 to buy a fire truck. And if there's a ladder engine, it costs about $1 million. So here you have again the same pattern. High of 16 million here, it goes down. And then you can see in the red, except for this spike here, that it basically is well under what it got before. Now, before we start on the proposed rail system, we have a little treat for you. We want everybody to be quiet because we're going to show you what it sounds like. So that's from about how far away is that? 50 feet. So you can see when they say it's quiet, well, it's not exactly quiet, right? You might have a hard time sleeping. Now here's the proposed system. Elevated handrail system running 20 miles from Kapolei to downtown. Actually, it's not from Kapolei. It's about 4 or 5 miles away from Kapolei, starting in a vacant field. They say it's going to cost $5.27 billion, $250 million per mile. This is the most expensive rail project per capita in U.S. history, 5 times the cost of AC3. City claims that carry by 2030 116,000 people per weekday. The trains will be driverless. They say it will remove 40,000 vehicle trips from the road. And just so that we're clear on what a vehicle trip is, when you drove from your house to here, that's 1 trip. When you drive back, that's 2 trips. If you stop at the store, that's 3 trips. Okay, that's what a vehicle trip is. They say it will reduce traffic congestion, and it will create 10,000 new jobs each year, 17,000 at the peak of construction, and it will reduce dependency on oil. We will address all of those things. The cost has gone up from an estimated $2.7 billion in 2006, 4.6 billion in 2009, 5.3 in 2010, and 3 studies, one commissioned by Governor Lingle, state study, and 2 by the Federal Transit Administration itself, conclude that it'll cost $7 billion. You must remember that these rail projects average a 40% cost overall. And that's not something we made up. The Federal Transit Administration, that's from their own study. Now, the city will tell you that the financial plan is strong, and in good order. Well, if it's in such great shape, why was it necessary to divert $244.7 million from the bus? Now, if that is used for rail, you're going to have to make it up somehow. And for that kind of cost, it doesn't come out of the 0.5% rail surcharge. It'll probably come out of the general fund, which we'll point out to you later. Also, the city was required to establish a line of credit, $450 million worth. This also, if it has to be paid back, will be coming out of the general fund, which is property taxes, etc. Now, what would this rail look like? 20 miles of elevated concrete structure, 721 concrete pillars, each 8 feet wide, on massive underground foundations, and 21 large stations. Let's take a look. Now here, it's going to start somewhere on here. This is prime farmland near Kapolei, and this rendering, by the way, these renderings were provided to us, drawn to scale, by the Honolulu chapter of the American Institute of Architects, those guys proposed this system. They used it for rail, but not on this particular project. So here it is without rail, and here's what it looks like with rail. You're going to excuse the feeding. They kind of leave it there. Next slide. Now, this is Farrington Highway, Oahu. Here it is, a fairly rural community without rail, and here's what it's going to look like with rail. Next slide.